Welcome to Real Flix Reviews. We're like a book club for people who hate reading. This week we're doing the Jean-Luc Godard movie, A Band Apart. This week we have Jonathan Charney, Ryan Preston, and Jeff Michael. This week Jeff picked the movie the Jean-Luc Godard movie, Band Apart, and who wants to go first?
I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, Ryan.
Let's see.
Eyes forward.
I'm sorry. I didn't write down any notes like John always does, so I have nothing in front of me. But I did just watch it. Well, first of all, I unlike most people out there, you give people like me a lot of shit. I actually like black and white movies.
Hell yeah.
I mean, it definitely, in my opinion, you almost have to be a better storyteller to be to make a black and white movie. It doesn't give you as many type of visual cues. You can't read emotion as well on people's faces, so you have to extrapolate a lot more, which makes movies actually slow, which is why I think a lot of modern people don't like it, because it just, the pacing is much different. That being said, this one actually kind of moves pretty quick. It's only like an hour and a half, I think, isn't it? Like a buck 34.
Yeah, it's about that, which is pretty crazy.
So I mean, it actually moves. In the beginning, you're almost kind of like, okay, what's happening? And then there's this little exposition that I really liked. It was like, okay, those of you just joining us, as if we just walked in the middle of it.
Right.
This is what's happening. You got a girl, these two guys, an English class, and a car or something, whatever they said. And I was just like, okay, they're setting something up. They're so that kind of gave me an interest in what was coming.
So here's the IMDb description, which whoever writes these descriptions needs to be fucking fired. Here's the Band of Outsiders, 1964, by Jean-Luc Godard. Two crooks with a fondness for old Hollywood B movies convince a language student to help them commit a robbery.
Yeah, it's IMDb is just broad strokes as far as I'm concerned.
Broad strokes, like one of those paint rollers.
Yeah, but this thing the Hollywood movies, their fondness for old Hollywood B movies. One, it's 1964, which is funny because the whole time I'm thinking, okay, I wasn't alive in 64, so I have to have a frame of reference. I'm like, okay, the Beatles came to America in 64. And that's all I thought was Mophead Beatles, early Beatles. But this thing, it played out, especially with the narration, more like a novel. Like, was this based on a book, or was this just a screenplay?
No, it was a screenplay. It's Goddard had a different style, but back then they were kind of focusing on the focal point of the camera. If you notice the different camera angles and stuff in the film, it was definitely a screenwrite play. It didn't come from like a book or anything.
Okay, because it's insanely like poetic and lyrical.
That was actually one of the things I wrote down, was the fact that the narration is more like literature based. It's literally
very literature based.
It's almost like it's out of an old Dumas book, if you actually read it, and then you get down to the actual language of the people talking, and it's more like everyday life. So it was a very interesting mix of a very literary style versus more a common language
almost
script.
Kind of a weird juxtaposition, especially with the type of story that it was telling, and how, like I said, lyrical the narration was. But it almost served to enhance the black and white. Like I said, you don't have the everything else, like the color aspect and the HD coming into your face, sort of giving you everybody's expression.
I did think it was interesting. I don't know about your copy, but the copy we were watching, the narration is quiet. It's not like modern movies where you get the narration is almost this thundering, booming voice of
it's
once
not
upon
the
a
voice
time.
Of God, Morgan Freeman narrating kind of voice. It's more they're just this kind of unassuming, like, this thing's happening over here, and this guy's thinking this, and
some of the times you're thinking closer up to the mic.
Well, I guess the narration was done by Jean-Luc Godard.
Mm-hmm.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually cool. I didn't know that.
So it's almost the director sort of telling, kind of the story the way he saw it, which is kind of cool. Also, the music in this thing kicked ass.
Right?
It was old school jazz. I mean, obviously, made in 1964. It wasn't made by a 19-year-old who loves the Beatles. It was made by probably somebody who just loved old jazz and these types of things. And
old swing. There was the Charleston was in there somewhere.
No, Charleston. That was the electric slide.
Yeah.
I know an electric slide when I see it, son.
I think
I meant the actual song. The Charleston, South Carolina. That was actually one of the songs
I was talking
in
about
there
when they were dancing.
No. I was talking about the actual music.
Oh,
because
okay. I didn't pick out the music.
Yeah, I picked out a couple of them. So some of it seemed an interesting mix for a French film.
Oh, but the dancing
soundtrack.
Scene is like
beatnik.
I hate dancing scenes in movies. Usually can't stand them. They're pretty corny. But this, for some reason, this is my favorite dance scene in any movie of all time. It was just like the coolest fucking dance that you'll ever see. It really
was.
It was just like the snap, 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 and then it was like, okay, my part's done. I'm just gonna walk away.
It kind of, for some reason, the whole time in my mind watching this, it's like it's a '60s beatnik rave with three people. For some reason, that's what kept popping up.
But also, if you looked at it, it did tell a lot to the story because both of the male characters obviously like the female character, and it was almost kind of their dance and their fight to get to this girl, but in the sense that we're too cool, we're beatnik, we don't care, kind of a method as opposed to.
The one thing that really surprised me was how young this girl acted. I mean, she was in her 20s. I mean, wasn't she?
I was going to say, she must have been about maybe 21. They were, maybe mid-20s?
Because she acted, I'll be honest, she totally seemed like, she was like a 16-year-old girl. The way she acted was like, really? You're 20? I mean...
I think they tried to show her innocence in that.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Because, if you notice...
I like that.
Like there were scenes where he was reading from the newspaper. This is back before the bad guy was considered something to like in a movie.
Before the birth of the anti-hero.
Right, and so you've got this anti-hero, but at the same time, they've got to express why you like him. So they're not, there's scenes where he's reading in the newspaper these horrible, atrocious stories of these murders and everything.
They're graphic.
And they're very graphic.
It's like a Frank Miller comic book.
And I think what the point of that was to say, hey, yeah, we're bad guys, but we're not this bad. Look at what's going on with the rest of society as opposed to what we're choosing to do.
And we just want money.
Right.
Well, it was funny, too, because one of the things was talking about, what was it? Then they found her body and what happened to her. It's like, dear God, they don't even do that here. They show it on television, but they don't,
Right.
But I was when obviously reading the description mentioned the Hollywood B movies. I think they only really sort of glossed over the fact that they were kind of modeling those movies. Because I think they only said like in the movies or something like that.
They
one time.
did, but they also had the scenes where they would fake shoot each other.
I was gonna say, but the rest of it was almost sort of subtly played by them kind of goofing off with each other in these kinds of Hollywood ways.
See, that's kind of what I thought, because when I read that description, I actually had to think about, because there was a scene where they fake shooting. There was a scene where they were driving around and the guy jumped through the back window. There's a couple of scenes that show that, but it's like Ryan says, it's subtle. I mean, if
they mentioned Billy the Kid, I think once.
Yeah.
And then another thing like this is how it happens in the movies, and then the TV sticker on the car, which I really liked.
I thought that was hilarious, actually.
There was a great part in it also where they were sitting there and they were what was it? He was talking to they were talking to each other and said, like a minute of silence seems like forever, and then literally he cuts off sound of the whole movie for a minute.
Love that.
I was like, that's brilliant.
Because the whole time when the first happened, I was like. Because Jeff warned me ahead of time. He's like, watch this. It's like, what the fuck? Why is there no sound? He's like, it's part of the movie. He's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Which is funny because
this is one of a couple of movies. What was the other one that we watched? The Killing, I think it was 54.
Yeah, 1955. Stanley Kubrick. Yeah.
Yeah, Kubrick. Yeah. It's the other one that I think Tarantino.
Reservoir Dogs.
But as far as stylistically, I think like in the beginning we said. A Band Apart, that's where he got his name for his production company from. But
you can
almost see the little tiny nods, like you almost look forward 30 years to Tarantino stuff, and you can see, oh, okay, I kind of see where that came from, sort of.
Right. If you notice also the dialogue, I mean, you had to read it, so it wasn't as in your face as a Tarantino film, but the dialogue was very good in this movie to the point where it was like, if you spoke French and didn't have to read the subtitles, it would just, I think it would flow a lot better. It would it would be like us watching something Tarantino did and we went, wow, like Samuel Jackson's, talking. It would have been like, that was amazing.
Well, my question is, since we had to read it, I wonder how similar his language style was to Tarantino. Because Tarantino, if you don't even have to see the movie, but if you hear a dialogue, you can go, Tarantino, because it's a very distinct flow, very distinct rhythm in the way he writes his.
And I think a lot of, it's a different idiom, obviously in France than in America. But even from America to England, where they still speak English, the idioms are different. So it doesn't.
Well, I meant far as, because you can definitely, there's a few movies that if you watch, you can say, because the killing is like this movie's really like this, and some scenes.
I was just saying it's kind of hard probably for Americans to judge how close the language is to Tarantino, even for French to judge how close Tarantino is to Jean-Luc Godard, or whoever wrote the movie. Just because, it's a difference. I'm sure they would say like, oh yeah, this guy's a great writer and things, but
I actually want to see some other movies he's done, because there's a few scenes in here, the way it pans, the way it moves, or the way the angle is. This is like, wow, there's some very big similarities between on some things in the way Tarantino does his work, which is really cool to see, actually.
But a lot of just more stylistic choices.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just glad Tarantino decided to draw from somebody with talent.
Well, if you look at Tarantino's movies, because this is a little bit of a non sequitur, but you can see where he gets everything. He's a very... Oh, yeah.
You know immediately what he's a fan of as soon as you watch his movies. His
movies are giant homages, which I think is really freaking cool.
I think his movies are homages to a concept of an idea in a dialogue, because 90% of his movies is just basically kind of having that quip or that smart statement in there that just, it's kind of like a mind fuck watching them talk together, because it's kind of like, whoa, it makes it more intelligent, I think.
Yeah, but not in a necessary, like Kevin Smith does that kind of like over exaggerated, people don't actually talk like that. You sort of wish you were that eloquent, and you know what I mean? But
I actually don't think Kevin Smith, like you said, it's not true to life, but it's also not as... I don't know. I don't like his dialogue as much as I like the way Tarantino writes.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It's the same kind of elevated speak, but Tarantino does it much more natural based, much more, like I said, kind of with American idioms and things like that. Really clever, but doesn't rely on it.
The one thing I thought was really different about this film was the depiction of Paris itself. Because normally
that was cool.
every movie I've ever seen where you're going to see a glimpse of Paris or something, it is a beautiful, happy city.
The city of love.
The city of love, yeah.
And
then this
French painters on the sidewalk.
Right, and in this movie, he basically states, when they're on the, what is it, the bus or the
metro.
The metro, thank you. When they're on the metro, she looks around and she's like, look, everybody's so sad, and it's just kind of pathetic. We live in this dark world, and it talks about how dark Paris is for people who have just become mindless, and it's kind of like, well, that's what a lot of Americans feel like. But I didn't expect to see that.
It really gives you a lot of.
Well, it's like almost like an insider look, because anytime you get somebody who's not from the city, who doesn't really know the intricacies or whatever, I thought was cool, and it was just like peeling back the screen a little bit, getting to see the inside, because this is 1960s.
Right,
Paris.
I was gonna say halfway through the movie, dude, I started feeling like, oh wow, man, this is Paris in the 60s. This is kind of cool. And it was filmed in the 60s.
Right, and you've got like actual footage that will just sit there of random cars going by and how things go.
Yeah.
Like I almost want to, because I've actually been to France, and it's like, dude, the next time I want to go to France, I want to there's a couple of places I totally want to see. It's like I totally want to reproduce pictures of it. because 1960s France versus 2013 or whatever. I mean,
I just want to break the movie's record of running through the Louvre.
I think I was just
Right?
about to say, I think the movie even proved a point in them running through the Louvre, because you've got this place where everybody takes time. It's such a beautiful thing.
Right.
And then they come through, they're the beatniks. It's like, all right, well, they're the band of outsiders. They're not normal. They just run through. They're terror as opposed
I have
to
to
calming.
admit, as somebody who's actually been in the Louvre, that is such a shame. The Louvre is so insane. I was actually thinking about you guys said earlier about how innocent she was, and a lot of the interactions are true. That prove that. I think one of them was the first scene when they were talking about ripping off the money, and she's like, well, saying, well, that was a conversation I had with Franz or whatever. How they were really putting the talons into her, saying, well, give us more information, and you're going to help this, and they were really
they
pressuring
totally
her.
used her. Yeah, they were
they were playing her from the beginning, more or less, but then
she played them. That's what I liked about it, because you've got the one guy that was madly in love with her, and then the other guy where you're going, well, he's not really trying, but in the end, he seems to almost end up with her. Not really, but
he
kind
seemed to almost kind of, like obviously, I was the whole part when they were rushing back when they saw the uncle's car or whatever going the other direction.
Yeah.
And he turned around, and he was, I think the narration was something like despite her protest or whatever, he, flipped the bitch and ran back the other direction.
Yeah.
I mean, he was going back there to save his friend, or so he thought, obviously. But when they got there and see the guy with the guns, they really couldn't do much about it. But
that gun battle at the end was funny.
Well, like, well, that was that. Let's. I guess I get the girl. Awesome. That's kind of what I wanted in the first place.
I do think, though, that she realized her mistake at the end. How you get to see a little bit of her innocence demolished because she realized she got at the short end of the stick because her aunt's dead and she's basically an accessory to murder.
Right.
I like that. That's the part I thought was interesting. Is you get to see, a really young, innocent girl who's just trying to make something of her life and blah blah blah. And at the end, you get to see how, like, she realizes,
she's grown and realized her mistakes.
Yeah, that's the part I actually think was
she
cool.
thinks her mistakes. Obviously, the aunt survived.
Yeah. Well, that was part I just don't understand, but
that was a part I thought was really cool. Just like, you guys fucked everything up for a little bit of cash that's going to run out, and probably as soon as you get to wherever you're going.
But there was money all over that house too.
Everything is so jacked up, and all for what? For nothing.
Yeah, all for
this chick
10,000
actually
francs.
survived, so you're not as screwed.
Not even that, because they were only able to find just a partial amount of the money because of what went on. But when they did that gun battle, back to that I love how
6 shots.
over drawn out that scene was, because it was kind of like, this is the guy you've been watching, and here he's going to die, but he has to die so dramatically that, because one shot wouldn't have been sufficient. It's like, no, this guy needs to be taken down like a champ.
He got shot 5 times
and kept walking.
I mean, you didn't even see him react. He just kept walking forward.
You don't know how good of a shot that guy was from 30 feet.
True.
He could have swung a couple of those shots.
True.
He might have only took 3.
But he wasn't aiming. It was kind of from the hip.
Yeah, they were
kinda
hip shooting each
That's what
other
I'm saying.
too.
He
It was
was-
kind
he
of like
was
the
hip
bow
shooting.
bow.
I love it just kind of as the French. You're just kind of moving forward, and then finally he shot the guy. The guy who was shooting him just died automatically. I mean, it's like insta-gib. And the guy finally, having like the throes of death and body freaking out, and finally went whack on the ground. It's like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it does that last spin on the heel and then right on his back, eyes roll in the back of his head.
It's like, one of those bad movies when the
it
person's
was
dead
like
and
watching
comes
a
back
death
alive.
from like the original Robin Hood or
Right?
something.
Yes.
With the sword underneath his arm.
It's like you're expecting the person to, expect him to be all of a sudden be alive again and give him a short message before he croaks one more time.
Right.
I actually really like, I totally dig the way they played the girl in this movie. I actually thought that was the first time in a long time I've seen a character who truly acted innocent, and at the end of it you get to see how she was enjoying being, the naughty girl for a while, and then you get to see her kind of realize that she made a pretty big mistake.
Yeah,
I like the fact that in the when they were in the English class or whatever, the one guy looks at her and right afterwards he's like, well, why are you learning English? That's a waste. If you're going to learn anything, learn Chinese. They're going to be the ones that are going to take over.
Win.
Yeah. And it was like back then, that was probably, a good chance of happening. I mean,
that part,
or more likelihood.
I like that, and the guy's flask in the empty bound books. That was the most random scene in the thing. He just opened up a book, pulled out a flask, and drunk it, and said, "You want some?"
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I want something like that. That's awesome.
No,
I
that
also
scene.
love the scene. You got a hole in your stocking there, sweetheart.
No, the scene where they're in the bathroom
Yeah.
and the guy goes, "Are you coming with us?" And she's like, she basically just tells him, like, I ain't driving in your car. If you were a real man, you'd have like this Renault. Yeah.
Which, by the way, is a small car.
Right.
So that whole scene right there was funny. How she totally just kind of like crapped on him like that. It was awesome.
She did.
I said. So, I have a question, Ryan. What would you rate this movie?
Shoot. All things considered, I think I was thinking about this earlier, like sort of teetering back and forth, but I'd have to go with 3. I think I liked the movie, but then it plays slower than you would might have expected. But man, the narration and everything was really good. It's a really interesting movie to watch.
I think one thing that people might not like about this, because it's not a spectacular. It's not a.
That's what I was going to say. You almost have to like the style of movie.
Because if you watch it, it's not like The Italian Job or other movies kind of similar ilk. It's slow to rob 10,000 francs from this house,
Right.
and
This ain't Bullet.
and it sputters, which I can totally see being a detractor from this movie for a lot of people. I actually agree with Ryan. I want to see it one more time, but it's a strong 3 out of 5, very close to a 4 on some parts. Definitely a 3 out of 5 for me.
Another one that I was like The Killing. Like if you're into that style of movie, like the Tarantino style of storytelling, or the interesting style of storytelling, slightly different from the norm, especially from black and white movies. It's totally worth a watch.
And just like I think this movie's a Criterion Collection, and I just recently bought The Killing on Blu-ray on the Criterion Collection. It's so if you want to go out there and find the definitive version, find the Criterion Collection.
Any Criterion film is actually pretty good, except when they put The Rock on Criterion for some ungodly reason.
Well, everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah, no, but you've got probably around a good 3 or 4 of Jean-Luc Godard's films are on Criterion Collection.
I definitely I want to see that. What about you? What do you rate this? Since this is your pick.
Since it is my pick, of course I'm going to rate it high, but and the reason I rate it high, I'm going to rate it a 4 because it's one of my favorites, just because, and you made the point earlier, the narration is just beautiful. The film is more like art to me than anything else. I mean,
yeah, definitely. It seemed, but not in like the usual, hey, this is a French art film. Well, those kinds of movies usually suck.
No, it wasn't pompous. It was real.
It was very, very real, and pompous is a good word.
I think the interesting thing about this movie is definitely has like an art house feel to it, but I don't think a modern movie could get away with what it does, because I think it definitely can't be as popular as I think this movie is to some people.
I think
because I think if they do some of this stuff, it would feel very indie, very art house, very.
But I think you're wrong, because that's what Tarantino took and did.
I see that. I think
we've sort of come to kind of like nobody, I think, would give a movie like this a chance anymore if you don't have a name like Quentin Tarantino attached to it.
Well, I think
that's why certain movies like, hey, this is produced by Tarantino, people will go out to see even if it's somebody they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody burns a movie this slow anymore. Like I remember I got that sort of like anxious feeling eventually in this movie, but it was really about the last 20 minutes when everything started to like, oh shit, all these kinds of things are coming together.
I actually think the key thing is there people who actually do slow burn movies, but not over an hour and 45 minutes. Kevin Costner movies, for example, are very slow burn, but they're 3 hours long.
But then who actually goes to see them in modern day? I mean, nobody is really aware of those types of films, like I said, unless you have Tarantino doing it.
Well, that's like if I were to tell somebody, hey, you need to see the silent version of All Quiet on the Western Front. People would be like, silent version? And then you tell them how long it is, and they're like, 3 hours of silent? No way.
See,
and it was a great movie. It's something you could sit there and watch and just be like, holy wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, the guy I've got to say, to kind of do a little bit of PSA for us, this is one of the reasons we started Real Flix Reviews, is being a tremendous fans of movies in general. And the shame thing about modern movies is you're missing a lot. Black and white movies, the black and white, the film is another character. It adds suspense. It adds drama. I don't think you can do that really in a color film.
Well, and it's also nice to just see where, like, the reason I love black and white films, or just silent films in general, old school humor, especially, like Chaplin to Marx Brothers kind of stuff. You almost have to know where these things come from, like some of those jokes actually stand the test of time. Some of them are like, oh, that's you can almost see the line going through history of like, oh, that was funny then, this is funny now. It gives you sort of a context to the past.
Yeah, I was surprised. There was a lot of actually really good one-liners in that movie that were funny. I mean, really cracked me up.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to do me a favor, everybody out there, is if you have a movie you really want us to watch, or something that you want us to take a look at, drop us a line. We have our email address at the end of the credits. Go to our Facebook page, or even our website, that's at theogt.tv, and let us know. Real Flix Reviews is really about our community and just having the conversation about movies.
Right, yeah. No, I don't think, with the exception of maybe a couple of things that we have fun goofing on and stuff, I don't think any of us really like to just shit on movies. Yeah. That wasn't necessarily my goal, doing this also, was just to come in here and bash the shit out of somebody's work, because I know how hard it is to even get something approved to make the thing, and then how hard it is to make the thing, and then how hard it is to get it released to anybody who's going to see it.
And not only that, then how your final product even turns out.
And then, a lot of that's why I don't like being the guy who's like, oh, that actor sucked in this movie, because he might have been working the best with what he was given,
right,
at the time. So,
or it's just not his particular role that his ability fits.
Right, or might have been poor direction, or maybe the writing changed. I think we discussed one of those movies. They were changing the writing all the time, so you were kind of didn't really know what he was going to be working with at the end.
Prometheus was like that.
See, I appreciate a film that can have those moments of silence, or do those things that make you kind of step back and go, oh, as opposed to, because everything's kind of been done in film now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's to the point where it's been overdone. So
right.
when you're presented with something that you actually have to think about or sit back and go, oh, no, that's why this is going here. That's why this is this way. That's actually very clever. It makes the experience that much more enjoyable to sit.
It makes it richer, deeper in your mind. You start thinking about it days after. See, people in modern days, people think they only get that kind of storytelling from TV, like HBO or Showtime, stuff like The Sopranos, the stuff that has the time to tell a real character arc. But it can be done in a freaking hour and a half in black and white and give you the same effect.
And not even in English and still crossover.
Exactly.
Right.
And I was going to say, you might think we're really producing a show, but we'll be honest. This is the conversation that we have when there's no cameras around. This really is conversation between four people who who are really good friends who just this really is a lot.
Before we even started filming this today, I had to say, okay, stop. Let's save it for the show.
Yeah.
Because we started going off on it like we always do, like, oh, this, and that. And then we started realizing, okay, well, this is why we do this. Let's stop and save it. But, yeah, we'd be talking about this anyway.
I was... the reason...
Just more text.
The reason I picked this film, personally, was, A, of course, it's one of my favorite black and whites, but, B, I had met when I lived in Colorado, I had met a friend out there. His name's Michael, and he's now in Chicago. He's an art teacher. The man showed me, like, oh God, thousands of hours worth of footage of all this art film, and started trying to, basically explain different aspects of film to me, and it's how I really got into film, which is why I ended up wanting to come on here and do this, because, I mean, he opened up, let's just put it this way, he opened up doors that were like closed for so long that are so amazing to things you can see in film. And this is one of the directors that he showed me, and who I really appreciate, who has got some other amazing movies like Perrette LaFaux, Breathless, not the one with Richard Gere, by the way. Yeah, so if you get a chance, see either Perrette LaFaux or Breathless. Mind you, not the one with
Richard Gere.
Richard Gere.
Matter of fact, go ahead if you're really into Richard Gere, if that's your thing.
Yeah, if you like gerbils, I mean, that's your thing.
Okay,
but,
less of that, please. So we're kind of running out of time here, but I have a question. So we're going into the movie news quick section of the show. And the viral marketing campaign for the new Godzilla movie apparently is starting to kick into full gear. And I was wondering, if you guys would see it. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be like Godzilla 2000 with Matthew Broderick, or if it's going to be like the traditional Godzilla. What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I like the Matthew Broderick movie.
Actually, I like it because of the difference.
Yeah, I just like it because they made a Godzilla that was like a skyscraper tall, and
Looked
like
like
it
a
step
dinosaur.
on a dinosaur kind of thing. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, and I was, I don't know, 10 when I saw that movie. Anyway, I think what I heard, they were making this movie after the original Gojira, which was adapted for, and they were released in America as Godzilla. But the original, what was it, 1951? I think Godzilla or Gojira was made.
Yeah, I think the original's black and white. That sounds about right.
Right, yeah, but it was post-war. I know it was post-World War II because it was post the bomb for Hiroshima and Nagasaki, obviously,
3 or 4 years
that
afterwards.
was sort of the Japanese's response, or cinematic response to it, kind of thing. Like, hey, look at this thing causing destruction, and every just what it was doing to the citizens. But it was more symbolic, I think.
And I can't wait to see
So it'd be
Godzilla.
interesting how they would adapt that to modern day.
I wonder if they're going to do the traditional giant Stegosaurus two-legged Godzilla, or if they're going to do like the Matthew Broderick, because I actually really liked the Matthew Broderick version of Godzilla.
I did too, but I think are they going to go back and do it in Japan?
I actually don't know anything about it. I was just reading up a little bit today and going, ooh, because I actually like
really
Godzilla.
The only difference between the old ones and because there was 9 of those made.
I got something to say, man. This just proves the point. I mean, there's no new ideas anymore.
No, there never has.
We're redoing and redoing and redoing and remaking the same effing film every time.
Here's
do you
kind
remember, do you remember the movie in the 90s called Angels in the Outfield?
Yes.
That movie was a remake.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm just saying, like,
no, it is. Yeah.
It's always been remade ever, but they used to at least wait a while.
Right now, like, you've got every single fairy tale you ever heard. Let's see, there's Hansel and Gretel. There's the witch hunters.
The Snow White.
But Hansel and Gretel didn't have Jeremy Renner. I mean.
Little Red Riding Hood.
But what I'm saying is, they're driving these stories into the ground. Not only are they driving them into the ground, they're changing so much in it that made it what it was that you're just going, this is shit.
I'll be completely honest. As much as I hate remakes at times, I think the benefit about remakes is you're introducing something to somebody that they'll say, oh, okay, let's watch this. And they'll read up about it and go, wait, there's an original? I want to watch that. So I think in some way they're generating a conversation about film to people who care about film to go, okay, what came before it? And I think if you do that enough, you'll see like, I think you'll get to see, okay, what do you appreciate about it?
But if you really, this is my opinion, if you really want that to express that in film, come up with an original idea, something that makes me go, well, now that is brilliant, that is smart. It doesn't have to be something that's not done before. Just do it in a way that presents itself as unique or something.
Which is one of the reasons I like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, because they have never been done, and they're doing it to a level that's just like, whether you hate them or love it. I mean, I happen to love the book and the movie, but you're seeing not only is it's Lord of the Rings, but it's Peter Jackson's vision of Lord of the Rings. You're doing it in a way that pays homage to the creator, but homage to the director. And I
right,
think,
and look, a lot of our favorite stories have been adapted from novels or even plays sometimes, which is cool when you're bringing it a great story to another medium.
Right.
So that even though the work has been done before, it's being presented in a new way, which is fine. I was going to say that back in the was it the 90s, sometime 94, 95, there was a movie called Freeway Made. I don't know if you've seen it.
yeah,
With
it's been a
Kiefer
while.
Sutherland and Reese Witherspoon. It was basically a modern day sort of twist on a Little Red Riding Hood story.
Yeah.
Which, okay, that's cool. You have sort of the main kind of chunks of, hey, this woman needs to go get to see her, or a girl needs to go get to see her grandmother. Meanwhile, there's this
The big bad
thing
wolf.
trying to stop her.
Yep.
So
Okay, cool. So that's kind of the skeleton of the story, and then you throw this giant spin onto it to where it's very seldom seen. Anyway, nowadays they just make Little Red Riding Hood into a movie, and they'll remake that 10 years from now, and then we keep getting Robin Hood movies and retellings and things.
I guess my biggest problem is that, yeah, that's fine. They want to remake a movie, cool.
But I'm saying there's a way to adapt something that's
Right.
okay, and there's a way to just redo it.
Right, that's my problem. I guess my biggest problem is the way that they're redoing it. Like, for example, they'd be, if they were to remake Little Red Riding Hood, like you just said, they all of a sudden Red would be her name. Little Red would be her name, and she's like,
she'd be a buxom blonde.
She'd be a blonde. Not only that, but she'd be a trained assassin. And then like the big bad wolf would have like, I don't know, heat-seeking, like, eye laser missiles or some shit. You know what I mean? They always, like, overboard it, you know?
There was a period, well, because they literally just remade Little Red Riding Hood, I think, in a couple of parts. I don't know if it was, I don't think it was a wide release. Even if it was, it might have just been direct-to-video or DVD. But they just retold the story of Little Red Riding Hood, but I think there was a time, and it's still going on, where it's like, oh, okay, we sort of have the opportunity to tell these movies visually. What's a cool movie that we can make look really cool, or a cool story that we can make look really cool? That's why I think they're going through these fairy tales, and old school legends and things like that, because it's easy to make them look cool and the story's already there. It's like printing money.
They just want a spectacle. So
Ask me, it's like a copy machine, just only you have color crowns and you keep adding other colors to the damn thing.
Right.
So Ryan, next week is your pick. So what movie are you gonna pick?
Well, as soon as I heard the word black and white, I immediately thought, like, okay, I know there's a couple of modern day black and white movies that I can choose from to throw a monkey in this wrench. So basically, I thought for like 10 seconds and came up with the perfect choice, which is my favorite black and white movie of all time, Young Frankenstein.
Sweet, Mel Brooks in the house.
Mel Brooks. Have we done a Mel Brooks movie on this?
No,
I haven't seen it.
This is the first one? Oh,
I think that's
man.
the first one we brought up.
Cool. That's a good one to bring up then. Yeah, for those of you unfamiliar with Mel Brooks, you're in for a treat because that movie holds up. And for those of you who have probably seen this movie 40 times, hey, 41.
Right?
What's one more time?
Well, it's one more time for a great movie.
You bought the movie for a reason, didn't you? Now
Damn
watch
right.
it again, damn it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I gave the Jean-Luc Godard movie A Band Apart a 3 out of 5. Ryan gave it a 3 out of 5. Ryan gave it a 4 out of 5. Next week, it's the movie Young Frankenstein by Mel Brooks. We'll see you next week.